Welcome back to Van Hoso Chima Margo Gasawa TV. We're going to be with me, Princess Mudisha. Let's start with the news headlines. Rwanda's central bank maintains its policy rate at 6.75% to support the price stability. Jamaica taps Rwanda to build digital case management system in $4.6 million deal. On the international scene, the European countries demand a seat at the table of the United States and Russia plan to end the war in Ukraine. Let's take a short break to be back into the news details. Welcome back into the news details, and let's start our news in Rwanda, where the National Bank of Rwanda has maintained its policy rate at 6.75%, signaling its commitment to price stability amid mixed global and domestic economic outlook. The policy rate is the benchmark interest that guides lending and deposit rates across the economy, enforcing borrowing costs for business households. The decision was announced on Thursday during the November Monetary Policy Committee and the Financial Stability Committee briefing by the Governor, Soraya Hakuziyaremye.
Prices on our inflation, be it for the remaining months in 2025 and 2026, that I would ask our Director of Monetary Policy, Professor Kasai, to respond, as well as the basis of our forecast for 2026. And so for the currency, I would start by saying that as a central bank, as you've seen, we are less concerned about the volatility of our currency if we look back at how the currency evolved from 2020. We showed a chart with the highest depreciation rate in 2023, and it's actually the year we also had the highest inflation on the back of the Ukraine war in 2022, but also rising Fed interest rates, which made the dollar stronger. Obviously, we know that our structural trade deficit always has an impact on the Rwandan franc exchange rate versus the dollar, but also other major currencies. This year, what the central bank had done and had started doing even 3 years ago was to ensure that the volatility we see on our currency are not driven by speculation. Hence, with the reforms we've made with enhanced inspections for all foreign exchange market players, but also ensuring that the use of the Rwandan franc in Rwanda is complied with, and hence our regulation and FX directive on who is allowed to be able to price or ask payments in other currencies than the Rwandan franc. Revised this year in May with a directive showing exactly which sectors may continue to price in other currencies because of the nature of their activities released in September. And so with the US dollar softening on global markets, because also of an easing monetary policy stance by the US Fed, these foreign exchange market reforms to limit any speculative tendencies, we are confident that now we will have a more stable currency, which we were experiencing since January. You may recall that in the past, our optimal depreciation rate, although as individual corporates, we don't like depreciation, but for a developing country with a large trade deficit and a large current account deficit, which we know is a result of our investments for economic growth, would be around 5%. Hence, now that we have 4% until end of September, it's in the range of what we would expect normally the currency to depreciate in, based on the economic fundamentals and trade dynamics that we have. So I'll give the floor now to Professor Kasai for the other two.
Jamaica has signed the US dollar $4.6 million deal with Rwanda to develop its integrated electronic case management system, a move aimed at modernizing the country's justice sector. The 37-month contract, managed by the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, covers system design, deployment, and long-term technical support. The RC CEO Patrice Uwase hailed the partnership as a milestone in the South-South cooperation, highlighting Rwanda's growing load in exporting digital governance solutions. Chief Justice Brian Steele described the system as a transformative step for Jamaican courts, noting to reduce processing delays, cut litigation costs, and make court services more accessible to the citizens. Law enforcement officers will also benefit as case files can now be submitted digitally from the parish office. Rwanda has already exported digital solutions to several African nations, including Chad, Eswatini, and Guinea, enhancing public financial management, tax compliance, and procurement transparency. Implementation in Jamaica will begin in area 2026 with a 3-month needs assessment followed by the system deployment and a 20-month of maintenance and technical support to ensure sustainability. Now let's turn our focus to this story where Ministry of Education, in partnership with ID, has launched a nationwide initiative to strengthen the capacity of over 8,600 school leaders and the district teams to collect, manage, and use quality education data for smart decision-making. With support from Ratia Rwanda, trainees will equip schools across all districts with the skills in data quality analysis and dashboards, ensuring that every register, exam report, and inspection find guides meaningful improvement in teaching and learning. Let's take a short break to be back into the international news. Let's take a look onto the international scene, where the European Union is pushing back against the 28-point plan to end the war in Ukraine, reportedly by being drafted behind the closed doors by the United States and Russia, demanding that any diplomatic attempt must have Kyiv and European leaders at the table. Sandra Tumukund proceeds.
Let's start with international news. In Africa, tension and hope are rising in Guinea-Bissau as voters prepare for one of the most continuous presidential elections since the party democracy. President Umaro Sissoco Embalo is seeking a second term in Sunday's vote despite a turbulent mandate marked by political disputes and repeated allegations of unelected. Embalo would become first sitting president to secure a second term in more than 50 years of independence, but controversy surrounds the length of his current mandate. Opposition groups argued his term expired in February, while the Supreme Court ruled it runs until September. The election date brought forward from November 30 has only added to the uncertainty. 12 candidates are running for president and 14 political groups, including one coalition, are contesting legislative seats. But analysts warn that the exclusion of key opposition coalitions combined with long-standing rivals within the military could heighten tension. The small West African nation of 2 million has suffered multi-coups since independence from Portugal, and fears of instability continue to shape the political climate. Still, many voters expressed hope that this election could mark a turning point. Marcos da Costa, another resident of Bissau, simply wants a peaceful process so that they can all live as Guineans. Turning to our next story, ever since began, turning to an externally ever since Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Brussels and the European capitals have been clear that they expect to play a role in any peace step. The European Union is pushing back against the 28-point plan to end the war in Ukraine, reportedly being drafted behind closed doors by the US and Russia, demanding that any diplomatic attempt must have Kiev and European leaders at the table. The plan, first reportedly by US outright Axios, is said to include terms that would be highly disadvantageous for Ukraine, such as the complete surrender of the Donbas, which Russian forces have failed to entirely control, and limitation on the armed forces. The revelation emerged in the lead-up to a meeting of European Union. Foreign affairs ministers in Brussels, where Russia's war of aggression dominated the agenda. Concluding our international news, two trains collided near Budapest on Wednesday morning, leaving 5 people seriously injured and dozens more with minor injuries. The R658 express train struck the OS 1853 passenger train between the R658 express train struck the OS 1853 passenger train between and the Vizice station around 6:20 a.m., forcing authorities to halt rail traffic on the line and arrange replacement bus service. Czech Railways confirmed the collision involved 2 of its trains during morning rush hour when services, typically commuters heading to work. 7 rescue crews and helicopter responded to the accident scene. Budapest Hospital received 5 serious injured passengers, according to spokeswoman Ivanovakova in a statement to Czech media. Emergency service initially reported 2 serious injured and 42 with minor injuries before updating the figures. Railway investigators have arrived at the crash site to determine what caused the collision. John Kuchela, Inspector General of the Railway Inspection, said 4 inspectors are examining whether the incident resulted from human error, technical failure, or systematic issues. This is Mama Rwagasabo TV. My name is Saula Sandra Tumukundi.
Coming to the news, and let's go back to this top headline news where Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad, the Emir of Qatar, has arrived in Rwanda for a 2-day official visit, and he was welcomed at the Kigali International Airport by President Kagame. Let's go back to the news headline where Rwanda Central Bank maintains the policy rate 6.75% to support the price stability. Jamaica taps Rwanda to build digital case management system by $4.6 million deal. On the international scene, the European countries demand a seat at the table of the United States and Russia plan to end the war in Ukraine. Thanks for having me. Stay tuned.